Hello, and welcome to Southern Tier Gardening. My name's Eric. Today is Sunday, October 16th. It's a beautiful day today. In today's video, I am going to do a full garden tour, show you guys what's going on here in the early fall. I am going to show you guys what I've been harvesting recently. And lastly, I'm going to talk about my warm season cover crop. So let's get started. This over here is my herb garden. Right now I only have Thai basil still going. We've started to get some cooler weather, and this is about the time of year when I get rid of my summer herbs, things like basil and mint and oregano, and I transition to cool season herbs, things like cilantro, green onions, parsley. They like the cooler months down here. So I'll be planting some things in this area shortly. I like to grow mums down here in the cool weather. This plant right here is zinnia. They like the warmer weather, but this plant is still doing good, so I keep that there. And lastly, over here, I've shown you guys this plant many times. I actually have 2 cayenne pepper plants growing in this pot. It's just been a really good year for this plant. I've harvested lots and lots of cayenne peppers. I've talked to you guys, most of the peppers I've left on the plant till they fully ripen to red, and I've been harvesting them and drying the red peppers in my food dehydrator, and then grinding those dried peppers into a powder to make homemade chili powder. And that's just been great. It takes quite a few peppers to make a significant amount of cayenne powder, but I've been doing this really throughout the season. I planted these peppers back in April, so I'll show you guys a little bit later in the video how much cayenne pepper I have at this point. So that's the herb garden. Like I say, I'm going to probably be planting some green onions in a container soon, and some cilantro. Cilantro always surprises me because it goes so well with all the summer vegetables, and you think about like Mexican food or Southwest cuisine. But cilantro really does not like growing in hot summer weather. You want to grow cilantro when the months are a little bit cooler. So for me, it just grows perfect down here throughout the winter. So this garden space over here is where I had my sweet potatoes growing. I've harvested all the sweet potatoes, removed all the vines, and later today I'm going to start preparing this garden space for what I will be planting here next. You can see over here I have some bags of black cow compost laid out. That's my favorite soil amendment. I do make my own compost, but I'm not able to make enough to really have enough for my garden spaces. These plots are about 15 by 25, so I do have to buy compost to supplement that. But what I will do to get this garden space ready is just till it all up, loosen the soil. I will incorporate that black cow manure. I will also broadcast over the entire garden space some 10-10-10 all-purpose fertilizer. And I did have a little change of plans that I will talk to you guys more about, but what I will be planting over here are my winter vegetables, things like kale, cabbage, collard greens. The reason that's a little bit of a change of plans is because this is the plot where I grew those vegetables last year. But with gardening, sometimes you can have things planned out, you think planned out perfectly, but you just have to kind of react sometimes to how the garden, when things come to maturity and when things are ready. So I'll talk to you guys more about that. But basically, I will be planting those vegetables on this side probably next weekend, And that will be fine. I've talked to you about crop rotation. The reason that's going to be okay for me to plant this side with those vegetables is those plants are all in the family, the winter vegetables that I grow, collard greens, cabbage, they're all called brassicas. And the last crop that I had in this dirt were sweet potatoes. And the crop before that were regular potatoes, which are nightshades. So I haven't had brassicas growing in this space really since last winter. So that will be fine for me to plant those vegetables on this side. So like I say, later today I'm going to dig all this up and incorporate the compost, get it nice and ready to plant. And next weekend I'll be planting those winter vegetables. Now we can go to this table. This is what I've been harvesting this past few weeks. The big news is I harvested all my sweet potatoes. I grew 3 varieties of sweet potatoes this year. This first one here, they sort of have the lightest orange color. This variety is called Beauregard. This middle variety, they're rounder in shape and they have more of a purplish skin. This is called Georgia Jet. This potato I've talked about is white. I haven't eaten any of these yet, but I'm super excited to. But this variety is called O. Henry, and you can see they're a sweet potato that has a white flesh. There are over 400 varieties of sweet potatoes that are grown throughout the world. So it's just amazing when you start learning about sweet potatoes how many different kinds there are. And lastly, over here I have some Bayou Belle. These have the purplish, or the most purple skin. I grew some of these last year too. So I was very pleased with my harvest. I ended up with probably about 100 pounds of sweet potatoes. I easily filled my wheelbarrow full of them. Now, a couple things to know about when you're growing your own sweet potatoes. One is the day or right after you dig them out of the ground, you really don't want to eat them at that point. They're not fully mature. What you have to do to sweet potatoes is called curing. And what you want to do is lay them all out flat and store them in a dark, warm location for about 2 weeks. I do this right in my garage. And what that does is during that 2 weeks while they just sit there and cure, first of all, the skins heal over. So you won't have any open spots on the sweet potato. And once those skins are fully cured, these sweet potatoes will store in a cool, dark spot in your house for like 2 months. I will be eating these sweet potatoes probably with Christmas dinner. The other thing that curing does is it allows the sugars to really build and form in the sweet potato. If you eat a sweet potato that's raw right out of the ground, it's going to taste okay, but it's not going to have that sugary sweetness that you associate with sweet potatoes. So it's very important after you harvest them, and it's hard because you want to get eating them right away, but you want to cure them. And once again, I do that by storing them in a dark, kind of warm location. You don't want them getting wet, and just let them store for a couple weeks. And that's what I've done here. These potatoes are now fully cured. I've been eating them. I've had a few of the Beauregards. I've had a couple Georgia Jets. They're absolutely just delicious. There's just nothing like homegrown sweet potatoes. It's another thing to realize when you grow your own sweet potatoes is some of them are going to look really funky. You know, you're never going to see sweet potatoes that look like this in the grocery store. They're just not going to make the cut. People won't want to buy sweet potatoes that look like this, but they're fully edible and they're fine. I mean, these potatoes are still going to eat great. It's just be aware when you grow your own, you're going to get some real odd shaped sweet potatoes. But keep in mind, as long as they're not soft and rotten, nice and hard, they're going to be perfectly edible and absolutely delicious. So I was very happy with my sweet potatoes. One thing you do have to have when you're growing sweet potatoes, they're easy to grow, but you have to have some hot weather. Sweet potatoes are native to South America, the tropics, you really have to have, I call it 90 and 90. You want to have about 90 days of temperatures that are in the 90s. You've got to have real hot weather. And I know that's prohibitive for some people in the country, but if you're in the South, I would highly encourage you to give sweet potatoes a try. They're really easy to grow. I didn't use much fertilizer. I didn't have to water them much. Even if you had a small, you don't need a big garden plot like mine, even if you had a 4x8 raised bed or a corner of your yard where you can squeeze in some sweet potatoes, I would highly encourage it. They're just so easy to grow. And for me, it's something that will grow right through the heat of the summer, the month of August, when not a lot else down here will grow. So very pleased with my sweet potatoes this year. These are some cayenne peppers that I harvested today. These are green at this stage. I told you most of my cayenne peppers, I've been waiting till they turn red, and I've been making this, you can see this jar, that's what I've got so far as my chili powder. But another thing I do with hot peppers when they're green is they can be frozen. So these cayenne peppers later today I'm going to dice up and put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer. And then this winter, they'll be perfect to take out of the freezer and add to my homemade chili. So that's the other thing that I like to do with these cayenne peppers. And lastly, this is what I've been harvesting. And I'm going to basically call these at this point snap beans. They look like green beans. And at this stage of the maturity of this plant, I am going to eat these and treat them like green beans. But what these are purple hull peas. That's the variety of plant that I'm growing over on that side of the garden as my warm season cover crop. This plant is grown mainly to harvest the beans that are inside the pod, or the peas. And they're basically a purple hull pea. They're very similar, almost identical to black-eyed peas. So I planted these peas about 50 days ago. It was on August 21st. So these plants have been in the ground for about 50 days. And at this point, you can harvest them as green beans. Why don't we go over here? We'll take a walk over to this garden space and I'll show you what these plants look like. This was the garden space where I had all my tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers growing. But when those plants were done and removed, I broadcast about a pound of seed over this entire garden space. And after about 55 days, this is what it looks like. And at this stage, this is what I was talking about. At this stage of the plant, you can look right here, they grow on the end of the plant, kind of up towards the top, and they look like a green bean. And that's what I've been harvesting today. You can see I'm getting some right here. They're real easy to pick. They're absolutely delicious. I've been eating these as I've been harvesting them today, just raw. They are absolutely sweet and delicious, comparable to some of the best, homegrown green beans you've ever had. Oh, look at this one. Here's a good one. Look at that. And they're real big green beans. So next, if I were to leave these beans on the plant, they would continue to form larger peas on the inside. And the hull, this green hull, or the pod, would start to turn purple. That's why they call them a purple hull pea. And at that point, after about 70 days of maturity, the pod starts to get a little dry and it's purple. That's when you would harvest this plant and you would break open the pod and you would pop out basically the purple hull peas. And they would look like little black-eyed peas. That's why most people grow this vegetable and as a cover crop. But what I'm dealing with, unfortunately, is this upcoming week, we are predicted to get some cold weather. And I always keep in mind when I talk about cold weather, for me where I live, it, it's nothing compared to the weather up north. But for our region this week, we're going to get 3 nights in a row where the temperatures are going to be in the mid 30s. And that's pretty cool for us in middle of October. We're not going to get a frost, but these black-eyed peas, or purple hull peas, they love hot weather. That's why they're grown down here really in the summertime in the south. So this is the first time that I've grown this vegetable. So I don't really know how cold it can stand. So I had to make a decision today. One is I could leave all these beans on the plants, hope that they live, hope that they don't get killed from the cold weather, and then after a couple more weeks, I could harvest them as mature pink-eyed peas. Or the risk of that is those cold overnight temperatures killing all these plants, and I would lose all the green beans. So I made the decision today. I've harvested, this was only maybe 1 2-foot row of section of this space, and you can see how many beans I'm getting. So later today I'm going to come in here and I'm going to harvest all the beans that are in this section. You can see, if you look here, they are just everywhere. Let's get out in here, right in here in the middle. See how they grow right on the top of the plants? They're nice and easy to pick. You just come in, they're just as tender, delicious right now. So that's the decision I made. I just can't risk losing all these green beans to unseasonably cool overnight temperatures. And also, if I don't eat all these beans, because I'm thinking, if looking at how many I'm getting at this point, I'm probably going to be able to harvest at least a bushel of these green beans. But the nice thing about that is if I don't eat them all in a short period of time, I'm going to give some of these away. They're one of the vegetables that's just great and very easy to freeze. So whatever beans I don't eat fresh this week or give away, I'll just put in my freezer, and that'll be another vegetable that I'll be able to enjoy, say, for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I love saving my homegrown produce that I've preserved, whether it's canned or frozen or dehydrated. I love saving my harvests for like special occasions. There's nothing more rewarding than, growing food in your garden and being able to cook it and enjoy it for holiday meals. So I'm super excited about that. But talking about why I grow this cover crop, I've talked to you guys about this. These beans, as far as a harvest, is actually a bonus. The main reason I grow this crop is after I harvest all these beans, maybe even later today, I'll come in with my mower, my push mower on the mulch setting, and I'll have the deck as high off the ground as I can, and I'll come in here and I'll mulch and mow all these plants right down. Then I'll cover this whole garden with a black tarp and let that green material start to die, turn brown, and break down in the soil. And then after a couple weeks, I can come in here and it's basically adding organic material, nutrients, nitrogen back into my soil. So it's a natural, it's called green manure. It's an organic farming method that's used to improve your soil. So that gets back to why my original plan was to have these beans out of here by now and to plant this side my winter vegetables, things like cabbage and collard greens. But seeing the harvest that I'm getting, I just could not terminate this crop. I had to bring these beans to maturity, and I'm so glad I did. Like I say, I never grew this plant before. People have told me this crop can be a little challenging to grow. They are susceptible to a lot of insect pressure, but for me, it's just worked out great. So like I said, I've changed my mind. What'll be happening now is back over there, I will plant all my winter vegetables. Then in a few weeks, once this cover crop is gone and terminated, I will come right back in here and do a full cover crop of winter greens. I will broadcast seeds over this entire garden space, do the same method, procedures that I've done for this cover crop, and I will do a combination of kale, collard green, mustard green seeds, so it'll be a mix, almost like a salad bar of winter greens. They're just so healthy and nutritious, delicious. They're easy to grow down here. So that's my next plan for this garden space. So just to recap, later today I'm going to be tilling up this garden, adding the compost, getting it ready to plant. I'm going to continue to harvest these amazing purple hull peas and call it a day. It's a beautiful day here today. Probably watch some football later on. So as always, I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. I hope you enjoy these videos and seeing what I've got going on in the gardens. So I'll be back here pretty shortly, talking in a couple weeks, probably another video about planting winter vegetables. So once again, I hope everyone has a great Sunday, and get out there and try to grow some food in your backyard. It really is rewarding. So thanks again, and I can't wait for next time here at Southern Tier Gardening.